For more than 3 decades, one name has remained at the center of one of the most debated controversies in entertainment history. Michael Jackson was not just a musician. He was a global icon whose songs, performances, and influence changed popular culture forever. But behind the legendary career was a series of allegations that would follow him for the rest of his life. Investigations, lawsuits, courtroom battles, and documentaries that divided millions of people around the world. Some believe Michael Jackson was a misunderstood artist who became the target of false accusations. Others believe the allegations revealed a much darker side of the man behind the music. But after decades of conflicting stories, one question still refuses to disappear. What does the evidence actually show? Because this story is not as simple as a headline, a documentary, or a single courtroom verdict. It is a case filled with competing narratives, changing testimonies, unanswered questions, and facts that different people interpret in completely different ways. In this investigation, we will look beyond the headlines. We will examine Michael Jackson's rise to fame, the world he created around Neverland Ranch, the first allegations that emerged in the 1990s, the criminal trial that shocked the world, and the accusations that appeared years after his death. But before looking at the accusations themselves, we need to understand the person at the center of the controversy. Because Michael Jackson was unlike almost any other celebrity in history. He became famous before most people even understood what fame was. At only 6 years old, he was already performing with the Jackson 5, standing out among his brothers with a voice and stage presence that would eventually make him one of the most recognizable entertainers on earth. By the 1980s and 1990s, Michael Jackson had reached a level of popularity few artists have ever achieved. His music crossed borders, languages, and cultures. His performances influenced generations of singers and dancers. His album Thriller became one of the most successful albums ever released, and his name became almost synonymous with global entertainment. But the same person who fascinated millions also confused many people. Away from the stage, Michael Jackson lived a life that often seemed completely different from ordinary celebrity behavior. His appearance changed dramatically over the years. His fashion choices were unusual and instantly recognizable. He surrounded himself with a world that seemed almost separate from reality. A world filled with fantasy, animals, private spaces, and the famous Neverland Ranch. To his supporters, these things represented creativity, childhood innocence, and a person who never truly lost his imagination. To critics, they raised questions about his personality, his relationships, and his boundaries. Perhaps nothing represented this contradiction more than his relationship with animals and his fascination with creating unusual experiences. His famous chimpanzee, Bubbles, became one of the most recognizable animals associated with a celebrity. The chimpanzee traveled with him, appeared in public, and became part of the unusual world Michael Jackson created around himself. Stories about his private life, from his friendships with animals to his unique lifestyle choices, often became larger than the music itself. And that became a major part of the public debate surrounding him. Was Michael Jackson simply an extremely unusual person who never wanted to leave behind the imagination of childhood? Or were some of his choices signs of deeper concerns that people ignored because of his fame? That question would become the center of a controversy that would continue for decades. And to understand how the world reached that point, we have to go back to the beginning, before the courtrooms, before the documentaries, and before the accusations changed everything.
This man is going to be humiliated beyond belief. He will not believe it. He will not believe what's going to happen to him. Beyond his worst nightmares. Sell one more record.
Behind the image of the world's biggest entertainer was a person who often described feeling completely alone. Michael Jackson spoke openly about the difficult relationship he had with his father, Joe Jackson, and the emotional pressure he experienced growing up as a child performer. He described a childhood shaped by fame, strict discipline, and a feeling that he missed many normal experiences other children had. As his fame grew, so did his isolation. Despite being recognized almost everywhere he went, Michael often spoke about feeling disconnected from ordinary life. People around him described a man who struggled with loneliness and who seemed to search for genuine connections beyond his celebrity status. Some of his personal choices appeared unusual to the public. Stories about his private life, including his collection of life-sized mannequins and his attachment to fantasy worlds, led many people to view him as someone who remained deeply connected to childhood. Supporters saw this as evidence of a person who never lost his innocence. Critics saw it differently. They questioned whether someone who had grown into an adult could maintain such an intense fascination with childhood without crossing important boundaries. His relationships with adults also became a topic of discussion. Although Michael Jackson was one of the most famous people on Earth, his personal romantic life was relatively limited compared with other celebrities of his level. His marriage to Lisa Marie Presley lasted less than 2 years and received intense media attention. Some observers questioned whether the relationship was genuine, while Presley herself later described aspects of their relationship as unusual. His second marriage, to Debbie Rowe, was also different from a typical celebrity marriage. Rowe, who had worked as a nurse for Michael's dermatologist, became the mother of his first 2 children. The couple eventually separated, and Michael retained custody of the children. Because of the unusual structure of his personal life, many people began asking questions about how Michael lived away from the spotlight. And nowhere were those questions stronger than at Neverland Ranch. Built on thousands of acres of land in California, Neverland was more than just a home. It was a private world created around Michael Jackson's imagination. The property included amusement rides, a zoo, a movie theater, and spaces designed to create a place where childhood fantasy could exist without limits. To Michael, Neverland represented freedom, a place where he could experience the childhood he felt he had lost. But as he invited children into that world, public perception began to change. Michael often spoke about his connection with children and described himself as someone who understood them because he believed he had never fully left childhood behind. He formed close friendships with young fans, wrote personal notes, gave gifts, and spent significant amounts of time with them. For supporters, these relationships reflected generosity and kindness toward children who admired him. For critics, the situation raised serious concerns. The question became, where does childhood innocence end and inappropriate behavior begin? That question became even more controversial because some children who visited Neverland were allowed to stay overnight, and allegations later focused heavily on these private interactions. Michael Jackson maintained that these relationships were innocent and that he was offering children a safe environment they enjoyed. But critics argued that an adult celebrity having such close relationships with unrelated children created boundaries that should never have existed. Regardless of where people stood on the allegations, one thing was clear: Michael Jackson's lifestyle was unlike that of almost any other celebrity. A global superstar, surrounded by children, living in a fantasy-like private world, and behaving in ways that many people found difficult to understand. And eventually, those unusual relationships would move from public debate into a legal battle. The first major controversy began in the early 1990s. In 1992, a chance meeting would connect Michael Jackson with a 12-year-old boy named Jordan Chandler. According to reports, Michael's car had a problem in Los Angeles, and through a connection with a rental car business, he was introduced to Jordan, who was a fan of his music. What started as a friendship between a famous entertainer and a young admirer quickly developed into a much closer relationship. Jordan and his family were invited to Neverland Ranch. They traveled with Michael, spent time with him, and became part of his private circle. According to the Chandler family, the relationship eventually became concerning because of the level of closeness between Michael and Jordan, including claims that they spent nights in the same room. Michael Jackson's supporters argued that the relationship was misunderstood and that there was no criminal behavior. But critics believed the situation represented exactly the type of boundary issue that had worried people about Neverland. At the center of the story was Jordan's father, Evan Chandler. Evan was a Beverly Hills dentist and had a complicated relationship with his former wife. Unlike many people expected, he did not initially take the matter directly to police. Instead, he began speaking with lawyers and discussing possible legal action. This decision would become one of the most debated parts of the entire case. Critics of Evan Chandler argued that the situation quickly became focused on money and legal strategy. Supporters argued that seeking legal advice was a normal response for a parent facing a serious concern. Soon, the private dispute would become a worldwide controversy, one that would permanently change how the public viewed Michael Jackson.
Let's tell you that this is very difficult for me, that Michael is my brother. I love him a great deal, but I cannot and I will not be a silent collaborator of his crimes against small, innocent children. Now you stop and you think for 1 second and you tell me what 35-year-old man is going to take a little boy and stay with him for 30 days?
The private dispute between Michael Jackson and the Chandler family would soon become a legal battle that attracted worldwide attention. One of the most discussed pieces of evidence from that period was a secretly recorded conversation involving Evan Chandler. In that recording, Chandler discussed his anger toward his former wife and his frustration with his personal situation. The conversation later became a major point of debate because people interpreted its meaning in very different ways. Those who questioned Chandler's motives pointed to parts of the recording where he appeared focused on damaging Michael Jackson's reputation and pursuing legal action. Supporters of the allegations argued that the recording did not prove what happened between Michael and Jordan, but that it showed a family conflict happening alongside a serious accusation. The biggest question surrounding the case was not only what was said in that recording, but what happened afterward. According to Evan Chandler, his son later revealed that Michael Jackson had acted inappropriately toward him. Chandler claimed that this disclosure happened after a dental procedure, while Jordan was under medication. This detail became one of the most debated elements of the case. Critics argued that statements made under the influence of medication could potentially be unreliable. Others argued that the timing of the disclosure did not automatically mean the accusation was false. Once the allegations were reported, the situation quickly moved from a private family matter into a criminal investigation. Jordan Chandler was interviewed by professionals, and according to reports, he described allegations of sexual abuse involving Michael Jackson. Because of the nature of those allegations, authorities in California were required to investigate. The Los Angeles Police Department opened an investigation, and the story immediately became international news. Investigators searched properties connected to Michael Jackson, interviewed witnesses, and spoke with other young people who had interacted with him. Some children who had spent time at Neverland or had stayed with Michael Jackson reportedly said that while they had close friendships with him, nothing inappropriate had happened. But the investigation continued. In September 1993, the Chandler family filed a civil lawsuit seeking millions of dollars in damages. At this point, public opinion began to divide. For some people, the allegations themselves were enough to raise serious concerns, especially because of Michael's unusually close relationships with children. For others, the case raised questions about motives, evidence, and whether financial pressure was influencing the situation. The criminal investigation and the civil lawsuit would continue to develop separately, creating one of the most complicated celebrity legal battles of the decade. But before the public had fully formed an opinion, two people would dramatically influence how the world viewed the allegations. And one of them was someone very close to Michael Jackson himself, his sister, LaToya Jackson.
So it was that we came back to our meeting at Neverland with 12-year-old Gavin. I'd found this easily the most disturbing moment of the past 8 months.
When Gavin was there, he talked about the fact that he shares your bedroom.
Yes.
Can you understand why people would worry about that?
Because they're ignorant.
But is it really appropriate for a 44-year-old man to share a bedroom with a child who is not related to him at all.
That's a beautiful thing.
That's not a worrying thing?
Why should it be worrying? Who's the criminal? Who's Jack the Ripper in the room? This is a guy trying to help heal a child. I'm sleeping in a sleeping bag on the floor. I gave him the bed because he has a brother named Star. So him and Star took the bed, and I'm on the floor in the sleeping bag.
Did you ever sleep in the bed with them?
No. But I have slept in the bed with many children. I sleep in the bed with all of them. When Macaulay Culkin were little, Kieran Culkin would sleep on this side, Macaulay Culkin's on this side, his sister.
As the investigation continued, public opinion began to shift dramatically. One of the biggest reasons was a statement from someone who was not an outsider, Michael Jackson's own sister, LaToya Jackson. In an interview during the height of the controversy, LaToya made serious accusations against her brother and said she could no longer remain silent. Her comments immediately attracted worldwide attention because they appeared to come from someone inside Michael's own family. For many people, a family member speaking against him made the allegations seem more credible. However, the full story was more complicated. Before those interviews, LaToya had publicly defended Michael Jackson and said she supported him completely. She had previously stated that there was nothing inappropriate about his relationships with children. Later, LaToya changed her explanation, saying that she had made those accusations under pressure from her then-husband, who she claimed had been abusive toward her. Because of these conflicting statements, LaToya's role in the controversy remains one of the most debated parts of the case. Some people saw her accusations as important evidence. Others viewed the changing stories as a reason to question the reliability of her claims. But LaToya Jackson was not the only person whose statements affected public perception. Another name that became significant was Jason Francia. Jason was the son of a former employee of Michael Jackson, and he had spent time around Neverland Ranch. According to reports, when investigators first spoke with Jason, he did not initially make allegations of inappropriate behavior. Years later, however, Jason gave a different account and accused Michael Jackson of inappropriate contact. His allegations would become part of the larger public discussion surrounding Michael's relationships with young boys. However, like many parts of this case, his testimony was also heavily debated. Supporters of the allegations argued that delayed disclosures can happen in abuse cases. Critics pointed to differences between earlier statements and later claims, and questioned how those changes should be interpreted. As investigators continued examining the Chandler allegations, another controversial moment occurred. Authorities conducted a physical examination of Michael Jackson after Jordan Chandler reportedly provided a description of identifying marks. The purpose of that examination was to compare the description with evidence from Michael Jackson's body. However, the details surrounding this evidence became another major point of disagreement. Some people argued it supported the accusations. Others questioned the accuracy of the description and how much weight it should carry. The public debate became even more intense when Michael Jackson reached a civil settlement with the Chandler family. The settlement was reported to be approximately $20 million, with additional payments connected to other claims. For critics, the payment raised an obvious question. Why would someone pay millions if they had done nothing wrong? For supporters of Michael Jackson, the answer was different. They argued that powerful public figures often settle lawsuits to avoid years of legal battles, negative publicity, and damage to their careers, even when they deny wrongdoing. And legally, a settlement is not the same thing as a criminal conviction. It resolves a civil dispute, but it does not by itself prove guilt or innocence. Meanwhile, the criminal investigation continued. 2 grand juries reviewed evidence related to the allegations, but prosecutors did not move forward with criminal charges at that time. The case remained open, but the situation changed when Jordan Chandler decided he would not testify in court. Without his testimony, prosecutors faced major challenges moving forward. After a lengthy investigation, authorities were unable to bring a criminal case against Michael Jackson based on the Chandler allegations. In the years that followed, the Chandler family itself experienced significant personal conflict. Jordan became legally independent from his parents, and later events created further questions about the relationships within the family. Evan Chandler's later life also became part of public discussion after his death in 2009. But by then, the controversy surrounding Michael Jackson had already moved into a new chapter. Because while the 1993 allegations damaged his reputation permanently, they were not the last accusations he would face. More than a decade later, another investigation would bring Michael Jackson back into the center of a worldwide media storm. Although Michael Jackson avoided criminal charges during the 1990s investigation, the damage to his public image was impossible to ignore. The controversy affected his relationship with major brands, including Pepsi, and changed the way many people viewed him. He was still one of the biggest entertainers in the world. His albums continued to perform strongly, and his concerts attracted huge audiences. But something had changed. Michael Jackson was no longer seen only as the legendary performer who had transformed music. For many people, he had become a subject of constant debate. And according to those close to him, rebuilding his public image became extremely important. That opportunity appeared when British journalist Martin Bashir approached him with an idea for a documentary. Bashir was already known for high-profile interviews with famous figures, and he presented the project as an opportunity for audiences to see the real Michael Jackson beyond the headlines. The concept was simple: give viewers unprecedented access to Michael Jackson's private world and allow him to explain himself directly. Michael agreed. Over several months, Bashir followed him, interviewed him, and gained access to parts of his personal life that had rarely been seen publicly. At first, the project appeared to offer Michael a chance to control his own story. But when the documentary was released, the reaction was very different from what many expected. Instead of presenting only a positive image, the documentary highlighted Michael Jackson's unusual lifestyle, his isolation, and the way he interacted with children. One of the most discussed parts of the documentary focused on his relationship with Gavin Arvizo, a 13-year-old boy who had survived cancer. Michael described his connection with Gavin as an example of helping a child through a difficult time. To supporters, this showed compassion and kindness toward a young person facing serious challenges. To critics, however, it raised new concerns about the boundaries between an adult celebrity and children who admired him. The documentary reignited many of the same questions that had surrounded Michael Jackson for years. Was this simply the behavior of an extremely unusual person who saw himself as a protector of children? Or did these relationships represent something more concerning? The public debate was about to intensify, because what began as an attempt to repair Michael Jackson's reputation would soon become the starting point of another major legal investigation.